Welcome back to the Tegiwa YouTube channel, and we're here at Tegiwa headquarters. My name's Tino and I'm here with my GR Yaris. You'll find me on FaithlessEmo Racing over on YouTube, and we're fitting the Gen 2 lights to a Gen 1 GR Yaris. So we're doing another video. We did the Zestech install on the GR Yaris not too long ago. Absolutely amazing mod on there. And today, as you can see, we've got some OEM Toyota parts. I'm going to do a little bit of an upgrade on the GR Yaris. So here we've got 4 components that upgrade the rear end of the GR Yaris. So on the Mark II GR Yaris, you had a completely different end lights and centre bar. So this is what we've got here in the boxes here, and we're going to upgrade onto the Mark I GR Yaris. So there are some carryover parts on the GR Yaris. It is quite a specialised homologation car, but there's a few bits that were moved over from the standard GR Yaris. Those include the antenna on the roof, the front lights, the wing mirrors, and actually the rear lights. So the rear of the lighting fixtures are all the same on the standard Yaris and the GR Yaris, but this is going to change today. So on the Mark II GR Yaris, they've moved things around a little bit. They've moved where the reverse light is, the fog light is, and some of the braking indicator lights. And it does update the rear end of the car and make it look a lot cleaner, in my opinion. The other thing to consider is the rear of the Mark II GR Yaris is different to the rear of the standard GR Yaris now. Because of those carryover parts, sometimes the rear of a GR Yaris looks exactly the same as a normal hybrid, but this will change as well. So should we find out what we've got in these boxes and see what we can do today? So the first part is a nice small part, which is this little bag here with part number, and this is basically the harness to convert the rear light bar to work with the Mark II and Mark I GR Yaris. Then we've got this nice big box here. So this is the middle centre bar, which at the moment is nothing more than really a badge holder. So let's see what we've got in this. Some nice OEM parts here. Right, wow. There we go. So here we have the new rear light bar, and as you can see, there's actually an LED that goes all the way along the actual length of the light bar. This on the normal Mark I is just completely black plastic, and we've also got the high level brake light moved from the spoiler down into this light bar, as well as reverse and fog lights. So this is really transformed. This one piece has a lot more differences compared to Mark I. So in these boxes we should have the left and right tail lights, so be identical other than the opposite. So let's have a quick look at these. All right, there we go. So this is the driver's side here in the UK. So as you can see, it's very similar to what we've got at the moment, except for the actual red part actually extends a little bit further over here. And these are quite a bit bigger. One thing I do find about the standard Yaris is the brake lights, the actual on the side, are actually quite small. So on these, they don't come with bulbs. What you do, you transplant over your bulbs from your original setup. They all fit in there nicely, and we've got to do a little bit of wiring as well. So this is everything that we're going to fit today. So as you can see, it looks absolutely fantastic. We're going to go and transfer it onto the Mark I now. This should be fairly plug and play, maybe a little bit of modifications, but we'll figure that out and show you along the way. So first thing we're going to do is remove the 2 tail lights. This should be dead easy. We've got 2 10mm bolts in here, and then the light fixture kind of slides out. There is a little pop on the side here to guide it in, so do need to tug it a little bit, but it should be okay. Right, now on the back side of the light, you can see we've got 3 connectors for our main lights. It's just a squeeze, a pinch, and it should come out for us. 1, 2, 3. So now we need to remove the rear tail bar. On the Mark I Yaris, it doesn't actually do a lot. We've literally just got a plastic mold in here, our badging, and the Toyota emblem. And this is all going to come off. But to get to it, we need to take this bit of felt off. There's just a few of these trim plastic screws in there, and then we should be able to get to the screws. There we go, so that's the felt removed, and then we should be able to access these bolts in here. So it's a bit difficult to see here, but you've got 2 number plate lights, and just to the sides of them there are 4 10mm nuts that we just need to remove, and then we should be able to pull the rear bar off. So when removing this, if you pull the bottom two corners and then lift from the center, it should rotate and come off. So here we've got a bit of a closer look of the Mark 1 and the Mark 2, or Gen 1 and Gen 2. You can see there are going to be some quite big changes in this middle bar. You can see we're losing the Toyota logo, so this car is going full debadged. We're also losing the GR and the Yaris logos on the side there. Mine are a blacked out version. This is normally like an anthracite colour. The other thing to bear in mind is we are gaining these extra two lights and the rear brake light. Now, these are already actually moulded into the rear bar, so there's no actual bulbs to get to or anything like that, so you don't need to transplant them like we do need to do with the bulbs on the left and right. In the unboxing part of the video, you would have seen that we unboxed this little harness adapter. Now, this is where this will come into play. This will plug into the bottom here, and then this bit is the bit which will wire up into the rest of the car. Now we've taken off the old rear light here, we've got the new one here. You can see there's a few things we need to transfer over. There's 1, 2, 3 bulbs. Now don't worry too much about the connectors, because each one of these connectors is different, so you can't really plug the wrong one into the wrong connector, if that makes sense. And also these openings are also keyed for the different bulbs, so you shouldn't be able to get the wrong ones in the wrong place. So let's transfer them over. So all these bulbs, you just quarter turn anti-clockwise and then they'll come out. You can see this bulb here, it comes out and there's a little point. Now if we look over on the 3 on here, there's only one that has the same point. It is in a slightly different location. So all you need to do is line up that point there, put it in and a quarter turn back clockwise. So we'll do the same for the other bulbs. So there's this one with the metal heat sink, quarter turn, out it comes, and this one has a little chamfered edge, should fit in over here. And the final one, top corner, we turn, take it out, and then we just transfer it straight over into here. There we go. So we thought it was just a nice, easy switch the bulbs over and plug in, but that's not quite how it works. So there is some de-pinning required, because if you leave it how the Mark 1 setup, what ends up happening, you'll have this as your brake light and this as your DRL, and it should be the other way around. So basically we just need de-pin and switch them over. But what we'll do, we'll show you this one's wired up incorrectly and this one's wired up correctly. So we'll show you the difference. So if you do set it up like that and realise that, you know why. So that should be the side lights, and you'll notice there is a little bit of a difference. And then if I press the brake, you'll notice the difference from left to right between what's on the brake and what's not. Driver's side is correct, passenger side incorrect, right side of the car correct, left side incorrect. So when you're looking at the back of the light, the connector furthest away from the other two, so you've got kind of a metal one and 2 plastic ones. So this barrel one, that is your side lights. So you want to disconnect that one first. A little bit of tape on here and label which one it is. So this is DRL. There is a R in there somewhere. Next one I've done, I've just turned on the hazards because I've got no way of pushing the brake and being here at the same time. So if I disconnect this one, that turns off the hazards. So that's the one that we don't need to mess with. So if we disconnect this one will be your brake one, which is going into this bigger block here. And again, if we just label this one. So these are the 2 connectors that we need to swap over. So we've got the brake and the DRL. We basically need to take the connector off this one and put it onto here, and the connector from this one onto here. Now, it can be a little bit tricky, a little bit finicky, but these are what called Molex connectors, and we'll put a link in the description for the data sheet of how to take these apart, but we'll also show you here now. So the first thing I'm going to do is just put a little note on the plug which wire goes where. So we've got a white cable on this side and a red one in this side. So just in case, I'm just going to put a little W, it's in black on black, and little, that is an R. Critique that down in the comments below. Now the first thing to take this connector off, we need to take this little cream locking connector out. Now the data sheet says to reach in here and pull up with a pick like that. You can see it's just lifted up a little bit, so we can now remove that locking collar. And now we should have 2 pins in there. The trick to these is you can see there's 2 pins. Below the actual silver pins, there is actually a black finger that we need to put in a 1mm tool and push that black finger down and be able to pull out the pins. Now it does take some getting used to, a bit of practice, but you can do it. I've got some de-pinning tools here, and what I'm aiming to do is go down the actual top of the connector, and you can see there is a stop. Push that pin up and then pull out the connector like that. So we'll do it again here. So we're going above the metal there. You'll see it slides in probably about 3 or 4 millimeters. You want to push up away from the metal. Okay, unslides there. It's hard to see, but you should see the pins go at the bottom, and then there's a black piece of plastic at the top there, which you're basically pushing your pin in and lifting it up. The other thing that I notice is sometimes it can be hard to see that little black plastic clip. And what you can do is actually push the connector out the front, and it'll come out the front, and then you should be able to see it. You can get your tool on there and then slide it back through. So this is the brake connector. Again, I'm just going to label it up. A B for blue and a W for white. Then again, to remove the lock, there's a little ridge at the bottom there. Put your pick in there, it pops up. There we go, the lock comes out. And then this one's same sort of connector, Molex one, and we want to do the same thing here. So you can see the pins at the bottom, and you want to go just above them and try and get the black piece of plastic, move those up. Another thing that you can help is when you push the tool in and you hit that plastic finger and you lift it up, apply a little bit of pressure with your hand to try and pull the actual connector out as you're doing that. So let's try that again. There we go, and it comes out. Right, so now we need to swap over the connectors. So the blue and white on this side went into that bigger plug onto here. Now what I've done is, because we labelled them up, I'm going to put the white connector into the white connector side and the red into where the blue used to be. So to place them in, they should slide inwards, so they should go in all the way, and you'll actually hear them click, and then they won't be able to come back out. There you go, and you should be able to pull on both connectors, and you can see they're seated in there now. And then the final part, you take the little locking collar, and that should go back over the top and clip on. That's done, so we'll repeat the process for this one. So when you are placing them in, they can only go one way. There is a slight chamfer on this corner, so when you put them in, you've got the tab at the top. You want the bulk of the connector pointing downwards, and it should slide in and then go all the way to a click. If you do try and put them in the wrong way up, you'll see it just doesn't fit. You could probably force it, but don't need to force it. Check on that side, they're both seated in nicely. Pop on the locking collar again. Clip. So now we've done the hard part of moving the pins over and the plugs over, we need to wire the light back up. Now it's dead simple because each one of these connectors are slightly different and they'll only go on one connector at a time. So if it doesn't fit, then try the next one. Right. So what we'll just do now is, before we fully fit the light, we'll just do a quick sense check that everything works before we button it all up. Should have side lights, a brake light, and an indicator. Before you fully fit the left-hand side light, of course, test it all works, you want to just disconnect it so that we can run the cabling for the reverse light and the fog light. So now we know it's all connected up correctly, we'll slide the light back on and I'll show you how to do that. So the best way to line up the light is these little fangs here will go around this little nubbin at the front, so aim for that, and then at the back you've got two little clips that go into the bottom of the light to locate it correctly. And it's as simple as that. Now our two 10mm bolts Right, so that is the passenger and driver side, left and right side, lights fitted, and they're all done. So these pretty much go almost plug and play. It's just literally moving those connectors over, and once you get the knack of getting into those pins, it's all okay on that side. Now these fit like OEM because these are OEM parts. I know there's sometimes other parts that you find on aftermarket that don't quite fit, especially lights, but these fit sublime. So now we'll go on to the light bar in the middle. I've tried pushing on the old Mark 1 Gen 1 light bar, well, garnish here, and as you can see, it's not worth doing a hybrid setup because there is a massive gap. You'll probably lose a small child down there on both sides. And this does also give me another point. Now, if you are running a ducktail spoiler off here, that I know there are some third-party tuners that do run ducktail spoilers off here, the Gen 2 light bar is actually a different shape. So if you do get a garnish and it's Gen 1, it's not going to fit on the Gen 2 tail lights. Next up, we've got the tail lights fitted. We need to get the supply of the actual signal from the bumper. So down here on the Gen 1, you have your reverse and your fog light, and we want to get the signal from there up into the tail bar, so that all works. So we've got our cable now, and what we're going to do is feed that down through the car. Probably going to use a bit of gravity. We'll feed it into the boot lid here, down to this grommet, through this grommet, down, and then out this grommet, and then down the back here and into the bumper, and then we'll do the wiring up in a minute. This chunky cable here is coming from this grommet here, so what we want to do is squeeze these. You can see there's 4 little dots. If you get a trim removal tool on there, it should be able to pop off the clips. Just push where each one of those dots is. It's a little clip, and then a little bit of wiggling, and it should come off. There we go. Hoping this makes it slide a little bit better. So now I'm going to feed the cable in here, and hopefully it should come out down here. There we go, that's the first part through. Next, remove this grommet, exactly the same. And then we're going to pass this through this grommet here. So as I'm feeding this through the grommets, you can see there isn't a lot of space. And we want to keep it looking OEM and looking nice and clean. So when you get a cable, make sure it's not too thick of a gauge. It doesn't need to take too much wattage or ampage, so it's not too critical on there. This is 2 wires connected in there, so I'm going to use each one of these black wires will be for a different connector. Right, so now we've got the cable coming out through this grommet. We need to fish it down here. Now the best way I've found is I've got a little bit of plastic, fed it through the hole down here. Now if you take off the 2 little plastic rivets just down here and here, we should be able to peel this back just temporarily. And you see up here there's an opening, and you should be able to pull that same piece of plastic through, and then we're going to attach the cable and pull that on through. That cable should now feed down through there. Now it's fed through. If you can see this little hole in the chassis just here, where my fingertip is, and then we should be able to feed through the cable and out here. So this little grommet here, I'm going to put a small incision in here so that we can get the cable through. Final bit of routing that we want to do is just take this end and then go down between the gap between the bumper and the chassis, and this should pop out near the floor, near your exhaust. So now we're back in the workshop, just because it's a little bit easier to work and film. What I thought is the best place to start is you're definitely going to need the DRL/brake light in there. So I thought we'd focus on that. So what I'm going to focus on is trying to get the source from the DRL of the passenger side light over into our light bar. So we're going to figure that out now. Next up, what we're going to actually do is start making some cuts into the actual wiring. So we're just going to split apart this so we can get the DRL out first. So I'm just going to cut a bit of this tape off, cut some of the sheeting off. We're going to neaten it up afterwards. And then what we want to do is get into here. So one of these wires here, we're actually going to use a little solder joint. So we're going to place it on here so we can put a second cable in here and run the feed up to the back of the car. So I've just taken the tape off the back, and there's an extra bit of sheath in here, and then we now have access to our 2 wires here. There we go. So we're going to actually snip this off now, and then we're going to run the extra cable, and we're going to run through here, into the light bar from there for the DRLs. We'll go there. Just going to strip back a little bit the insulation. And we'll do the same on the plug. So the high level brake light, I'm going to keep mine because I've got a stop spoiler with just a maxed on spoiler cap. So what I'm going to do is actually take the feed for the brake light, the high level brake light, into the light bar from the brake light of the actual rear light. So we're going to cut into this connector similar to how we did on the other one. So I'm going to cut this off and then work back on this a little bit of sheathing. In the kit, you will get this little connector here, and this is the actual harness connector to wire up these lights. It supplies all the current and the power. It has a little grommet on here. Now, we will need to cut this off. We're going to have to cut the end off here. And what I've actually done is I've actually purchased what's called Deutsch connectors. So they're a bit overkill, but this is a 6-pin one, and it basically goes together, creates a nice watertight seal. Now, it's inside the boot. It doesn't really need to be watertight, but it's a good quality connector that won't move around and fall apart in the future, which is what we don't want. Point of no return on this one. So the rounder side of this connector is what goes into the light bar. The squarer side is what we're going to cut. So we're just going to cut here and give ourselves as much cable as possible. There we go. What I'm just going to do now is just peel back some of this sheath in here just to give us a bit more room to work with. So in the little harness adapter, you have a black cable, which is negative, red, which is for your brake light, blue, which is for your fog light, yellow for your DRL, and white is your reverse light. Right, okay, so in theory, that should turn on. And it does. Being the reverse, brake. We have switched to the ramp, and that's just because we have access to the ramp. It makes it a little bit easier to film it so you guys and girls can actually see what we're doing. If you're doing this at home on the driveway, there is a jacking point just under here behind the exhaust. Just jack up the car, put some axle stands there. Gives you a bit more visibility. We're just going to take the bumper off here, just because it makes it a little bit easier with access. There is a thing of doing a job and you can kind of do it with your fingertips, but if you can make the job easier, might as well, even if it means taking off an extra part. So we're just going to take off this rear bumper and get some access. T30, just in this corner here. There we go. So there's one on either side of the exhaust, and then there's 3 on each wing as well. Go. That's one. So there's one more little pop rivet in the top of each wheel arch. Just there's also this little plastic screw here, which just turns counterclockwise and comes off. Yeah, it looks like there's just one up here, a teeny weeny one. There we go. Splash guards out. So there's a little tab on the inside there, just here, that we just need to push in to release the little bracket. So there we go. Disconnect the harness from here. Now we've got the rear bumper off, we can lay it on the table and we can see exactly what we're dealing with. So at the bottom in the center here, you can see we have the reverse light and the fog light. I'm just gonna wire up the reverse light, but if you wanted to do both, it's just the same, but doing it with 2 plugs. We're gonna use these Deutsch connectors, and we're gonna basically splice into here and make an extra bit of harness that will go up to the back of the car. So again, the black and white should be the negative. So just black on its own should be the live. We're going to give ourselves a bit of space. Right, now we're ready to connect up. The choice that I'm using here are these shrink solder connectors. Now, these to me are a good combination. They're nice and easy to use. They have a bit of solder in the center, which you warm up and it melts, completing the connection, but also has these little plasticky sections here, which also melt to make it a waterproof connection and nice and strong. So those are what I'm going to use. There are many options out there. Feel free to use whichever you think is best. If we keep black as negative, slide this filler in here. So we've made a nice strong soldered connection on there. So we're going to do the same now on the live wire. There you go, nice strong connection. Now we're just going to neaten it up, tidy it up with a little bit of loom tape. So now that connector's on and it's nice and waterproof. These connectors are brilliant water and weatherproof, and this is going to get splashes underneath the car. I'm just going to cable tie this up to here just to make it nice and neat and keep it away from the exhaust. The exhaust is hot down here, and as people have said, they have melted things down here. I've never done it in 35,000 miles, but you never know. So now we have our cable that we've run down from the grommet down here. We're going to get this prepped with the other end of that Deutsch connector. So we're going to just remove a bit of this, make it nice and neat and tidy, and then splice that in just the same as we've done with the rear bumper. I'm going to leave a little bit of extra length so you'll be able to connect the connector up and then reverse it back in. And then you'll be able to pull the cable up and hide it away up in the side, the boot edge. And that's just so to give us enough space to get the bumper off, but we don't want anything dangling because it's a big high exhaust. Nice strong connection. We've done the connector here, so you can see we've used that heat shrink there, and then I'll just use a bit of electrical tape to keep it nice and clean looking. Now we're going to fit up the bumper back, reconnect everything, and test that bottom light. There we go. So we've just taped up the old connector, placed it back on the old reverse light, just to keep this light sensor here weatherproof and weather tight, and in case you ever want to go back. Go. Connected to that. Bumper is back on now, and as you can see, we've got all the cables here. Here we can see you basically got 5 connections. These are the 5 connections that are going to go back up into the light bar and do all the business. That end, you can see this is where the side lights will go in, DRLs. This is where the brake light will go in, and then we have a neutral here. These 5 cables are going to go through the grommet and up into the light bar. If you were running a reverse and a fog light from the bottom to the light bar, then you'd be running 6 cables. So we'll use you as our neutral, and then we will use this one coming through here as our signal for brake and DRL. Right, so if you've been following along the video chronologically, you will be kind of at this point. So basically the connections that we've got here, yes, they are with a little bit of masking tape, but don't worry. So we've got a negative to a negative, which is then going to go onto a plug. We have our positive signal for the DRLs. Then we have another negative that's going to go into a plug, and another positive that is for our brake light. So what I'm going to do now is put on the original little tails here with a little bit of those solder joints that you saw before, and then it should be nice and neat, and then we can start neatening it all up. Right, so they're twisted together, and then we're going to put the heat shrink over there. You can do it with this with a heat gun, but we've just got a little portable torch. There go. So that should be one plug done. So we've soldered up those connections there and they're nice and strong. What we're going to do is what I call a sense check. So before we commit to making this look all nice and pretty, loom tape and all that jam, we're just going to connect it up to the light and make sure it actually works before we commit. So it should get side light, brake, and then indicator of any other. Yeah. Car's all back together, passenger lights all back in, and we've tested it, all works perfectly, and as you can see, fits beautifully. It's OEM quality on there, and as you can see, there's no cables because we ran everything up through the grommet, and it pops out just up here, as you can see. We've done a nice bit of labelling to label everything, just because it makes it easier to get things like this connected. So next up, we've got our Deutsch connector. As I say, it's a bit of overkill because it's inside the car, but it makes a nice OEM looking connector on there. So I've got 6 cables, 5 on here. So I'm going to match them up with the male ends and then we'll connect them onto the female ends. Let's see if this works. Lights. Brake. Oh. We've got reverse. So we've just done a little sense check. We've got the light bar fitted up, connected up with this spaghetti of wires and just tested everything works. And it does, which is great. And this is where doing a bit of preparation, maybe taking it a bit slowly, labeling things up makes this process a lot easier. So it all works. So we're going to neaten this up and then we'll get on to actually physically installing this. Okay. So now we're just going to take this little harness loom that we've basically made and we're just going to make it nice and neat with a little bit of loom tape. Right, so there we go. I've neatened it up. I'll just put a little bit of electrical tape over the connectors to give it a bit more weatherproofing and then a nice bit of loom tape on there. So it looks nice and sweet. Let's do the same under the boot lid. So there we go. We can see the loom is nice and tidy and ready to be cable tied away. Nice connector on there so we can disconnect it and the connector to the light bar. So now what we need to do is this grommet needs to go to the outside. So we need to actually drill a hole in the boot lid. Close the lid, here we are. So you can see here, this is the number plate light. We can see this little hole here, which is where the light bar will mount to, but we're gonna make a hole just about here. It's a 24 millimeter hole, and we're gonna just drill it with a step drill into there. So let's get to drilling a hole in a brand new car, basically. So as you can see from this little dirty line here, you can see this is actually gonna be underneath the light bar. So where we're drilling here will not be visible to you when you're standing outside the car because this will be completely covered up. So we're just going to make sure there's a 24 millimeter hole around about here. Aim for there, that's well within the dirty range. I'm just going to put a small hole to start with. So I'm going to use a step drill bit here just to enlarge this hole out to 24 millimeters. Don't worry too much about what's behind it. I've just checked and there's nothing but empty space and metal, so we can be careful. We're a little bit off center, but so we've drilled this hole here and we're on the final steps now. So it's nice and smooth. So what I'm just going to do is, it is naked metal, so I'm just going to get a little bit of paint, just paint it on there just to keep it nice and corrosion free. The paint is all dried on there now, so it's nice and protected. So we've got the harness here. So we're going to feed that through, get the grommet into the right place, and then we're almost there. So at the back here, I'm just going to go through this big open section here. You should be able to see our 24 millimeter hole there. Just pull this grommet through slowly. Now orientation, I've popped it this way around just because I think that'd be the easiest way to click it into the actual light bar. So white cable on the top, red cable on the bottom. And I think, looking at that, that could pass as OEM. So now back under here, what I'm just going to do is, before we fit the light bar, I'm just going to neaten up some of this. So you can see our connector, we've got a lot of extra cable in here. This will now connect like that. That completes the circuit. So what I want to do is just find somewhere neat to cable tie this up out the way. Probably thinking somewhere along with the original connection, so along that. That's all neat and tidy up there now, and it's all cable tied so it won't rattle or cause any issues there. And we just need to put that little fleece kind of piece on there with the little rivets, but that's nice and simple, you can do that. So let's get to the pièce de la résistance, get that light bar on. With this going on, there is this rubber seal, which wasn't on the Mark 1. I assume it's just to keep out any rain, water, debris, as there is now electronics in here. It is a little bit tricky. Sometimes the second pair of hands can help just to tuck it under the window. So we want to connect this up onto here and try and slide this underneath the glass. There we go. So pushing it on, there's a little pops that you took off originally. They just need to be pushed on in the corners. And then we just need to return the 4 bolts on the back side here. If you want, they are 4.9 Newton meters. That looks different. I know it's a subtle difference, but it's definitely a difference, and it's going to look mean in the night. Imagine this pulling up, seeing this in the night, and it just all lit up. There we go, we are done on this install. We have the Gen 2 rear lights all done, dusted, and looking fantastic and working fantastic. We have moved the reverse light from down in the diffuser up into this light bar, and we now actually have 2 high level brake lights to look even more awesome. But yeah, this all lights up, and I have to say, I can't wait to see this in the dark. I think it's going to look menacing. It's going to look like some devil horns lighting up. The install was a journey, let's say it that way. We learned a lot here, and you will have learned a lot here. I think what you get in the kit and what we've made here is making it work as best as possible. It is, I'm not going to say fully plug and play, but it isn't too far off once you get the idea. It took us a little bit longer because we was finding out, we were learning that journey. We've done that learning journey for you. So if you was doing this at home on your drive, I reckon with the right tools, you could probably knock this out in maybe 2 or 3 hours, 4 at tops. So maybe grab a beer, put it on the side, have an afternoon and pop it all together. In the kit, you got the light bar, the passenger and driver side light, and that little wiring adapter. We did have to use some other bits and pieces that will link down in the description down below. Things like the Deutsch connectors and some extra cabling. That was really the most of it, and some solder connections. But again, they're all down in the description. So thank you very much for watching. I think we've done a great install here at Tegiwa. If you've enjoyed me, I'm Tino. I'm over on FaithlessEmo Racing. You'll see me on Instagram and YouTube doing things with this car and a few other things. So if you'd like to see more, put a little comment down below what you'd like to see. If there's any modifications you're interested to see, I'm happy to come back if the Tegiwa guys and girls are too. So right now, let's go and boot this up, and then we'll get some nice clean before and after so you can see exactly what you're getting.